China's time is over?
Yeah,
क्यों
yeah.
ऐसा?
The GDP is not even 8 trillion, right? So,
What, really?
yeah, 8 trillion भी नहीं है, उसको inflate करके 18 दिखा दिया है. Right? I think we can call ourselves like best of the breed.
In the
Scale and quality. It cannot always be the Ambanis and the Adanis sort of dominating markets, or Tatas for that matter, dominating markets. There have to be more startups dominating certain verticals. And that's when I think the entire economy will sort of, then there'll be more belief that like you can take markets and be market leaders in there. Abhi hamara GDP is like 3.5-4 trillion odds, right? The World Bank has said, or Economic Forum has said, 2032, that will be 12 trillion.
12 trillion. Welcome back to another episode of Figuring Out. Today, I want to ask you a question. You must have used services like Zomato, Ola, Zepto, Blinkit, Swiggy, all of these services. And every time they come to deliver you, they call you. But you can't see their original number. They call you from an unknown number. And you can call them back, but you don't know which number you're exactly calling back. This is called phone masking. So today, we called an entrepreneur who is running one of the biggest companies in the world of phone masking. Today's episode is with the founder of Plivo. In today's episode, we've talked about how there are small opportunities like this which normal people don't see, but it's filled in India and a lot of people can use them and build billion-dollar empires around it. Then we spoke about how China is fooling the world by faking the numbers that they project. Reality mein kya hai? We don't know. Then we have spoken about how India strategically placed against China, against the world, and why America is really important for India and China, both of us, for our growth. In today's episode, we've talked about so many things related to how you can get an opportunity to win in this country. So make sure you watch this episode till the end, and please go check out Raj Shamani Clips and Raj Shamani Shorts channel, because there we put this huge podcast in small clips and also put unfiltered clips which usually you don't get to see in the podcast as well. China is facing to their own problems now.
अब तो बैंड बजेगा उनका. I think उनका time, I think the time is over.
China's time is over?
Yeah,
क्यों ऐसा?
Lot of problems internally, right? Like it was all sort of self-inflated internally. I mean, I've even read some reports where they're saying the GDP is not even 8 trillion, right? So,
what, really?
Yeah. It's all inflated, artificial numbers being shown in the media, close to 18 trillion. There was a report that came out. I think some Chinese lady itself. There's a channel called P Gurus. They actually spoke about that on the channel, saying she's a Chinese national, but in the States now. So she was able to talk about it, saying 8 trillion भी नहीं है, उसको inflate करके 18 दिखा दिया है. And it's all coming crashing down now. I think next 4-5, and then COVID to anyways now. Yeah, US was the main supporter for China. Abhi like US has taken their support out. Right, it's on India now. So we'll see a lot of. I think India is the clear. That's another reason we don't want to give our passports up. Right, like the
India is a clear winner.
100%. Like the next 5-7 years, look, there's no country that is democratic, like a democracy, with these sort of population, age group, all of that. There's no other country.
But India में दो चीज के ऊपर हमेशा बात होती है, right? There is that two challenges. Okay, let me tell you, like I am very optimistic India. Like I'm pro India, optimism at peak, and I believe it's our time.
Yeah.
But every time I talk to people who are, let's say, entrepreneurs or economists or strategists, they talk about two major challenges of India. One is the education level.
Yeah.
People say that, okay, this is India's time, but India's people are not educated or skilled enough.
Skill, I think, is the right word.
Skill, right? Let's say skilled enough to actually be able to take full usage of the opportunities that we have. That is one. Yeah. And second is India's consumption pattern is super low.
When you say consumption, like from a
consumerism point of view.
Okay. Not super low, but I think it's very skewed. 20-30% of the country is consuming most of the stuff.
Exactly. It's just very skewed. People say it's not, consumption is not rising at scale. Matlab, it has to, because if any other country, if you look at most of the country where they've grown,
right,
they've either grown because of their self-consumption, let's say US, where the whole country was consuming, that's why there were so many needs, or there is something like China or Indonesia where country makes it for other people, so that they keep giving it outside and then they get the US dollars or the European dollars inside.
Yeah, I have strong opinions on this. I think this is one of my favorite topics. Right? So think about it this way. Abhi hamara GDP is like 3.5-4 trillion odds, right?
3.65.
Ballparkish 4, let's say 4, right? They're saying the World Bank has said, or Economic Forum has said, 2032, that will be 12 trillion, right? I think that was pre-COVID, and it doesn't factor in all of the movement to India, all these companies moving to India. I feel like 2028, 2030 tak ho jayega wo number.
12 trillion.
12 trillion is World Bank's number for 2032.
You feel the whole economy is going to grow by 4x? 3x.
आप सोच के देखो.
In next 5 years.
Not 5 years.
28 you said.
28 is like very optimistic. 2030 तो होना चाहिए.
7 years.
Right. 32 तो like worst case है. Unless we mess up very badly. मतलब politically and all of that, like it goes, for a toss, right? So opportunity is there. So now if your GDP is going to grow 3 times from where we are today, imagine the opportunities that will be created. So whatever you're talking about, skill and consumption nahi hai, so per capita will automatically start increasing, right? And then you're saying skill nahi hai. Skill to I think wo FOMO se ban jayega, right? Like because people will see everybody who is upskilling getting to a different league, right? And it's like before the Jio moment, nobody had phones.
Yeah.
Internet नहीं था किसी के पास. अभी सबके पास फोन में 3G 4G है. तो वो FOMO moment ही हो गया अभी, right? Like सब कुछ ही अब.
Yeah.
It will be like that. Like the 2x is not even created today.
Yeah.
It's still not done, right?
Yes. It's
so that will be when that gets created. I think I don't think I'm in the camp that there's tremendous opportunity, but I feel like we cannot be complacent, right? Because if we get complacent, then I think बहुत कुछ होगा नहीं. Go India तो होना ही होना है. Like it'll get done. So let's just chill out. वो तो फिर I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Oh, so you can't. Okay, so there is optimism in the country. You feel, let's say your 1 rupee is gonna get to 3, 4 rupees, 5 rupees. There's an opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
But if you feel like कि मैं 1 rupee लगा छोड़ दूँ क्योंकि इंडिया तो बढ़ना ही है, so it's not going to happen.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll have to work hard for it. We'll have to work hard for it. Not just work for it. Work hard for it. And this mindset of complacency has to go out. So I've spent a lot of time in China actually.
Okay.
So my previous company was I was with Huawei. Their HQ is in Shenzhen. So I spent a year and a half in China, like living in China. So I've seen how, that sort of taught me that wartime mentality. वो लोग हर दिन ही उनका wartime mentality होता है.
क्या कौन सी mentality?
Wartime mentality, right? Like meaning something's on fire today. We need to get things done in a very extreme urgent sort of mindset.
Okay, wartime.
Wartime mentality. Every day it's like that.
Every day is a war.
Yes, right. So, and that's why Huawei, if you see, like when I took my first job, this was in 2005, right? I've been in the telecom space all this while. My first job, I think Nokia, Siemens, Ericsson, like these are the companies we would think about for the wo jo antennas lagte hain na, right? So all of that was like Nokia, Siemens, Ericsson. By the time I left Huawei was everywhere. They took over pretty much all of the other companies. Took over as in they sort of beat all of them. And that only happened with that wartime mentality. So I've seen like how that mindset works. I think India mein wo aana, like that's the key thing that is missing today. वो भी आएगा अपने आप, but I think वो mindset आना पड़ेगा.
That everything needs to get done today.
Yes. With extreme urgency.
And it's urgent. Like
वो चलेगा attitude, I think we'll have to give it away, right? And we talk a lot about, we're very proud of this Jugadu attitude. So that's the thing I learned, being in the States. That Jugadu attitude also has to go. Professionalism is very,
it has to go.
Yes.
India is super proud of being Jugadu.
Okay, so maybe I think Jugadu has 2 aspects of it. One is the problem solving aspect of it. So I think that has to be there obviously because we can do things frugally. But I think wo chalega attitude has to go with the Jugadu aspect of it. There's a little bit of that unprofessionalism that comes in. Right? Ki kar lenge yaar, chal ho jayega yaar. That mentality has to go. Right? So I think while Jugadu I think can also have I don't want to remove the positive connotation to it. But I think वो negative connotation piece has to go out.
कि चलता है.
हाँ, मतलब अगर बोल दिया कल तक हो जाएगा तो कल तक हो जाएगा. Like you should be able to take somebody's word for it.
Yes.
Right? That professional mindset.
So not lose promises.
Absolutely. I think making sure like you stick to what you're saying. So that I've seen in the US, right? Like people are very, very professional. And I think and I think corporate India is also quite professional. But वो mindset like it has to become second nature everywhere.
Okay, so when you're at work, you're at work.
Yeah, not just at work, anywhere, right? For anything, like that professional mindset has to come in.
Okay, tell me, you've worked in China and you definitely work in India. What are the differences you've seen China or India mein kya differences hai?
In terms of the work ethic?
Yeah, in terms of just the country, generally, in terms of the way, because I'm very interested in knowing कि China ने ऐसा क्या किया कि world को beat कर दिया सबसे पहले. बहुत जल्दी बहुत their growth was massive. They came out of nowhere and became this superpower, economic superhouse in the world. पहले तो ये बताओ सारा inflated है तो क्या reason है उसका? Like first tell me about that. Do you think that it's real also or no?
No,
I know about this Chinese. So I was watching this movie, I think Chinese Hustle.
Yeah.
Right, have you heard about it?
Yeah.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
So Chinese Hustle was like they used to have these small companies in China. They used to list that in US market.
Yep.
And then they would just artificially inflate the value of the company and report it to US government that, hey, you're not allowed to check here because country ke rules ke according, country only has to report what happens in the country.
In China, yeah.
In China.
Yeah,
so
correct.
inspect करने के लिए US के लोग नहीं आ सकते. तो आपको inspect करना है तो यहाँ के local से inspection report बनानी पड़ेगी. Right? So the Chinese in the US paid few Chinese here in the China, got the valuations up. वो बोल देंगे लिख देते हैं कि भाई मेरी कंपनी $50 billion कर रही है, जबकि रियलिटी में 50 करोड़ भी नहीं कर रही. Like it's not even doing 50 million, but they say 50 billion कर रही है, and then they would list it in the US market and they'll show the upgrade. And they'll keep buying, and at one point they'll start dumping. And big major banks were involved.
Yeah.
So this was like a Chinese inflation. I was reading.
अभी भी चल रहा है. I think there is a bit of that. I think in the EV sector we saw some of that, right? Like with I don't remember the company's name. Neo, I think, was part of some of this.
क्या था?
Same dumping happened. Like there's no product. The stock was inflated. There's a lot of government help.
Okay. How does Chinese government help Chinese companies to win?
It's like how the Indian startup economy works today. Like, net loss leaders sort of economic model, same model. But that's funded at a government scale. So imagine, right? So yeah. So over time you make money. I mean, one could argue, like there's another point of view there, right? A lot of people say there's nothing wrong with it. Amazon did that for so many years in the public
20
market.
years,
Public market. So there's nothing wrong with it. I think there's nothing wrong with it as long as you are transparent about it. And you communicate that to the other side that this is how it's being run, right? I don't think a lot of this is like publicly spoken about in the audiences. So that's where it becomes a little interesting. But otherwise, I think going back to your question on how is China different in terms of what I've seen differently, I think the sheer hard work that people put in is crazy. Like I said, every day is wartime mentality. When I was in China, in Shenzhen, everybody would be in office by like 7:30 in the morning. 7:30 in the morning, and we'd be in office till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, right? And nobody forces you to do that. Like you feel left out if you don't do it. That's the work ethic. And this is Huawei. Huawei has, I think, almost 150,000, not even 150,000, 150,000 employees. Now maybe it's more. So it's not a startup of, we had 20, 30 people and we're doing this, right? Yeah, 150,000 people. So ये culturally ingrained है कि हमको ऐसे ही काम करना है.
और इतना ही काम करना है.
सब लोग करते हैं. जो नहीं करता है, they feel left out, right? Nobody's forced to do it. And there's a 30-minute break in between for lunch. You sit on a lunch table. They have a huge cafeteria, lunch table. It's served. So like they give you don't have to go out anywhere, right? Everything's inside the campus. So, there's a large cafeteria. You can buy stuff. You can do all of that stuff. So जब खाना खाने बैठोगे आप, 30 minutes break है, but I think 15 minutes के अंदर, like it's a table like this, long table like this. People are like finishing food and getting up. So if you don't finish in your batch, the next batch is sitting in. And you'll feel awkward कि मैं अभी तक बैठा हूँ. So the first week was like an eye-opener to me that I have to finish the thing in 15 minutes. Right? That's where I learned my chopstick skills. Right? Yeah, because in 15 minutes you have to finish that stuff and you're eating rice with a chopstick.
Yeah.
And you need to get out, right? So it was like get out. And then the good thing is it's a mandatory no work nap after your lunch. So 30 minutes, everybody just goes to their table, takes a nap. You have to take a nap. Everything's shut down. Monitors are switched off, so you just cannot work.
Mandatory 30-minute nap.
30-minute nap, right? Like it's in the Chinese culture. It's also in the Spanish culture. It's called siesta there.
And why do you do that?
It's a power nap. So it makes you like, you don't feel like, it feels like you just started work then. Once you wake up and start working. So when you think about it, 7:30 to 9 o'clock, how do you keep going? The only way you can keep going is when you take that power nap. So it almost feels like it's a fresh day. And there's obviously a lot of green tea driving that. but yeah, it's a lot of green tea.
But don't you feel sometimes if you keep working like this every day in a schedule, you lose on your creativity?
Yeah, I think
I've read somewhere that schedule is a killer of creativity.
Yes and no, both, right? So left brain, right brain, classic stuff, right? So if you want to be more creative, I agree. I think you need some time to think through things. Although the teams I worked with, I don't think there was a lot of creativity there. It was more pure execution. Like we had to execute, right? Like we had to out-execute the other side. So I don't know if I can speak for like the teams I worked with, but I agree, right? Now when I reflect back, like there are days when I have to sort of think through some things creatively. Those days are usually lean days. You don't put a lot of deep work in those days. Don't have a lot of meetings on those days. So I think you need a balance of both now. But you're still working, right? Like working doesn't just mean sitting in front of a laptop and just, punching buttons, right? Like you are or keys. You're still working in your head. You're still working, right? So yeah, I mean, I would argue you could be in a cab to the airport or whatever, but if you're
still working.
mentally you're still thinking about like what needs to get done. So wo mindset lana padega, and nobody should be telling you sort of this has to be done. I think that's the difference I saw there. It's not like people are chasing you to get that done. Nobody's monitoring you up. Kitne baje log in kar rahe ho, kitne baje log out kar rahe ho. It was just getting done as a cultural thing, right? So I think that's the biggest difference I've seen. In fact, when I was in Huawei India, it was completely opposite, right? So
same company.
Yeah, same company. So 9 o'clock we had to be at office. They would literally monitor your punch in time. I mean, talk about being in corporate life. They would monitor your punch in time, and if you are late 3 days beyond 9:15, then you need to get certain approvals from different layers. And if those are not approved, then you have to apply for a leave, half a day leave. Like it was that bad. And like we're talking corporate life, right? So yeah, I mean, Huawei India was like that. So they tried to bring in that same vibe here and it just wouldn't work. And they had to enforce it, right? So I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I think that's one difference. I think like that hard work
culture is crazy.
Yeah, major difference. Okay. Like they work like they're an underdog. I've also spent a little bit of time in Brazil, like a year in Brazil. And I feel like it's a total opposite. Like that was a shocker to me. Brazil is more like super relaxed, as if they've made it in life, right? It's they everybody in their head believes they're a very developed nation and a rich country. Nobody works beyond 3:30, 4 o'clock.
What, really?
Yeah, it's completely chilled out culture. I was there for 1 year. It was a shocker to me. Right, and that year there was also World Cup there. So, anyways, like because of their soccer, nobody actually works. Yeah, I was totally chilled out, and
but their economy is apparently not that great.
No, it's not, right? Like they are in the BRICS grouping, but they behave like a rich country. Everybody there believes they're a rich country. It's like if I compare Brazil and India, Brazil has at least 10-15 years more to go towards India. Like Brazil could be like what India is in
15 years from now.
Yeah, 15-20 years. But if they work, like nobody wants to work there. It's super chilled out.
But I think Brazilians have wild energy. Like probably their attitude towards work is different. But they just want to party all day.
Yeah, I don't think it's work. I think it's the same thing with everything else except like party. Right? Their entire mindset is like just partying.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm saying. It's I think a rich country, developed country mentality.
The celebration mentality.
Yeah, we've done everything in life we have to do. And most of these folks are I'm like regular folks I'm talking about.
Not the richy rich.
No, absolutely not.
Interesting. I didn't know this about Brazil. I thought probably Brazil would reflect India, Indonesia.
No, I've stayed in Indonesia also like for almost 9 months. Right. Okay. So yeah, Indonesia. I think Indonesia has a good hustle culture. Right. Like it's very similar to India, let's say 20 years ago. So a good hustle culture. People are grounded. They want to do the work and get things done.
How would you compare India and Indonesia if you have to? Because a lot of times people say East mein there's a gem called India and East mein there's a competitor called Indonesia.
I don't know. I'm biased, but I don't think Indonesia is like talent pool is missing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say that the talent pool, the tech, the natural resources, everything in Indonesia is there. It's just about time that they blow up.
My personal experience has not been that. I mean, maybe things are changing now. I mean, this was also a long time ago, right? Like before Plivo, which is 13 years ago. So things may have changed from a tech talent pool, but I don't think you can find the same level of tech talent, tech I'm specifically talking about, at the scale and quality you have in India.
Okay.
The scale and quality is very different, right? I think we can call ourselves like best of the breed. Scale and quality in India, right? Like in 2000s, I think India was more of that, low cost. It was looked at that. It's not that anymore, right?
It's real talent now.
Yeah, A-player talent. We give a run for the money to anywhere in the world. In fact, our team at Plivo, our entire engineering product teams, all the tech stuff is in India.
Complete end-to-end.
End-to-end. Everything gets done in India. Like we build in India and then we obviously, it's part of, so India entity is a part of the US entity. So it's a subsidiary model, but everything's done here.
Interesting. Okay, we'll come to Plivo. I want to complete this loop on India. So we spoke about China, we spoke about Brazil, we spoke about Indonesia. What's the Indian attitude now? Why do you think India will win? Because obviously, India, apart from the fact that, okay, our middle class is growing, we have the largest democracy, we have foreign funds coming in, everybody's thinking that, hey, this is it. But why would you feel India will win?
I don't think so. Right? India has an opportunity to win, which is why I said we can't be complacent. Like Will gets into that complacency sort of mindset. Right? I think there's a great opportunity to win because I think the circumstances are like there are a lot of cards that have aligned over the last few years, right? Now some people may not agree. I think the government has done a good job in whatever time frame. At least that mindset, like, some of the folks I see, like it's like a company, right? How do you think about getting, like in a startup, you always think about getting A players. You see a lot of these folks in the government today are A players. Ex-IITians, ex-foreign ministers, all of those sort of folks, right? And when you look at them, like they're aspirational. They're not like, there's somebody else in the government. So very aspirational. Like, for example, I was watching this video where Sundar Pichai was on stage and Ashwini Vaishnav was alongside him. Both of them are IITians. Yeah. Right? So that's very aspirational to look at that. So I think that building that A-player team and mindset has been very critical. Obviously, a lot of geopolitical stuff that has happened in the last 2-3 years with the China thing and how people are discovering that's not going in the right direction. And a lot of now FDI investments coming in India. And I also feel like a lot of that startup economy, I still think there's a lot of large conglomerates dominating the country. But I think the startup economy is done very well. Although it's debatable how many of these companies will survive. But I think it's a phase. You go back and look at US in the .com era. That's how it was. There was a .com boom, then a bust. Few companies survived. It's survival of the fittest, right? It's capitalism, essentially. And then you will see things maturing over the next 10-15 years. So I think India will go through that phase as well. I think I would say India would see success and would have sort of arrived when there are more and more startups that can call themselves, successful without VC money.
Okay.
Right. I think that's how I would put it.
But why do you want to? Okay, tell me. Why do you want to be successful without VC money? Is there anything wrong with VC money and getting successful?
No, because there's nothing wrong.
Exactly, because I tell you, right? I was reading about the top startups of the world, right? They all have taken external capital in some or the other way and raised shit tons of money, not small, shit tons of money, and have believed in themselves for decades and keep pumping eventually to make it sense one day.
No, absolutely. And I don't think there's anything wrong with VC money. VC money should be a lever or should be thought as a lever to sort of get to where you need to get to, right? But it cannot become a crutch. So there's a difference, right? The difference is if your business cannot sustain without that money in the longer run, that's when there is a problem. Because at the end of the day, it's that whole game. VC's model works a certain way, right? They have to get exits. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it has to come to public markets or somebody has to acquire them. Yeah. Those are the only two routes. There's no other route. If you're dependent on somebody acquiring you, that's not in your control. If it's public markets and you still cannot create a business model, things will tank, right? You can still inflate it till a certain point, but at some point it'll tank. But those are not the companies that will create the next wave of economy or the change we want in the country, right? So to be able to create that, I think there have to be meaningful companies who go public and then can sustain themselves and then create that value.
But I tell you, here's what I'm just asking you again because you understand this much better than me. Think about any company, okay, whether it's a large conglomerate or a small startup. What essentially VC money is saying? VCs are saying that, hey, you're a small guy. Yeah. We know that you don't have enough money as conglomerate. You can't fight with them. But I think you have a brilliant idea. Let me put you in a level field with a conglomerate. Let's fight together.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. That's exactly what VCs do, right? Or else, let's say, a Reliance of the world or the Adanis of the world or the, XYZ group of the world will always come up with products because they have hundreds of crores to pump in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what VCs say, you have an idea, can you beat them? Can you do faster? Can you do better? They have 100 crores, we give you 60 crores.
Yeah.
Beat them in 60. If you do that, we'll give you 600 crores. Fuck them.
Yeah.
And that's essentially the whole idea is.
Yeah.
So you don't know whether your business is going to make sense at the end of the day or no. You always work with your thesis, with your research, with the team in a belief that one day it'll make sense. I'll give you an example, right? There are two examples which I really think, and world celebrates them. That's why I really like to put it out. Okay, there's a startup called Zudio.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Have you heard of it? Tata?
No, I haven't. Right.
So Tata started, let's say something like Zara, but for tier 2, tier 3 cities in India.
Sure.
Okay. They started their showrooms called Zudio. It's a fashion brand. Everywhere they opened like very good looking showrooms and then people buying it. And in just, I think year 2 or year 3, they have made, it's like a 1,000-2,000 crore revenue business or something more than that. And they're profitable. It's crazy, right? Everybody's celebrating. Look what Zudio has done. Look what Zudio has done. Man, we never thought ki yaar kaise kar lega koi aake. Tata's have done exceptionally well. They learned everything from Zara and then they copy pasted everything, right? Like they say, brilliant. I agree with that. Excellent execution. Why is nobody talking that the pump in 600 crores on day one?
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
It was Tata who had 600 crores to put in the country to say that, hey, for a year, I'm just going to open good stores. I'm just going to focus on my supply chain and sourcing. And I'm just going to keep doing it again and again and again. That eventually it makes sense. So it made money. Okay, that's one.
Sure.
Second example was, have you heard of MamyPoko Pants?
Poko Pants, yeah, I've seen those ads. Yeah,
we have seen those ads, right? Like it's diaper, it's baby diapers. India was dominated by Pampers and Huggies.
Right.
There was only. So one Japanese brand, Unicharm, they decided that I want to go and kill India and I want to own the market share in India. For 6 years, every year they bleed 100 to 150 crores. Every year. Just on advertising, distribution and trade discounts. Nothing else.
Sure.
It's like just branding, marketing. For 6 years we do this. 7th year, they're the market leaders. They absolutely dominate the market. Where Huggies, there was a point, I think Huggies and Pampers together didn't have market as much as them.
Sure.
Right? So 6-7 years it took them to go and do the most boring business, which is going to give them like 10-15% EBITDA at the end of the day.
Sure.
So most of the brands, if you look at, whether it's conglomerates or startups, you have to, in order to pump in money with some idea, with some gut for 5, 6, 10 years, to make a place for yourself. So what's wrong about it?
No, I'm not denying any of that. In fact, if you see Jio or on Amazon, they've done the same thing, right? So I'm not denying any of that. I think what I'm saying is, I think everybody starts with the VC thing and saying there will be a light at the end of the tunnel and we will become profitable or unit economics will work out, right? I think the companies that can do that, that's where the success is going to be. I'm saying for India to change as an economy, more and more companies have to get across the other side of the tunnel.
Got it.
Yeah, today that's not the situation.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, if the country is still sort of dependent on, these kind of companies and where the tunnel is not crossed yet, I think there is still a heavy reliance on the VCs and that has to change is what I'm saying. Right.
Fair.
So there's nothing wrong with it. And I don't think it's easy to, or I think it may not even be possible to build a B2C company at that scale without putting that money in.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably required to be done. And that's where VC's model comes in. But what I'm saying is, I think the question was, when do we think the economy can change? I think we need those startups to also, it cannot always be the Ambanis and the Adanis sort of dominating markets, or Tatas for that matter, dominating markets. There have to be more startups dominating certain verticals. And that's when I think the entire economy will sort of, then there'll be more belief that like you can take markets and be market leaders in there. That belief has to change. Right. Today, I think, and it'll happen in steps. I don't think I'm saying it'll happen overnight.
Yeah.
So I think this phase has to happen. There'll be, the best companies left. Some of the companies will sort of, or most companies will perish. Some companies will come out as winners. But at the end of this, few companies have to cross the tunnel.
Which startup do you feel is an underdog today at a large scale, some name, where people are still doubting, but you believe कि इंडिया में ऐसी टाइप की चीज चल सकती है?
ऐसी टाइप की चीज चल
सकती है. अभी बहुत disbelief है, maybe about some sector, some industry or something, but I think one day it can work and India can see that.
That's an interesting question.
Just I'll give you an example, right? Let's say I genuinely believe that, like Nykaa will make sense in long run?
Like Nika's business model will, but I'm not sure Nykaa will.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I meant. I think a beauty marketplace which has trust and the kind of trust which Nykaa has been able to take in, I think that's tremendous. And the way the whole country is progressing, I don't know who will win in this game, whether it's Myntra Beauty or Nykaa Beauty or Amazon launches with their beauty or whatever, I don't know. But I think a beauty marketplace will eventually become a thing, because what Sephora did in retail, I think somebody can do that online.
Yeah, and I think we're already seeing a lot happening in that segment, right?
Yes. So it's Purple or Nykaa or whatever, I don't know who, but I think that business will make sense. There's a lot of disbelief कि भाई public market में जाने के बाद भी कुछ हो नहीं रहा है, ये क्या ऐसे pump करते रहते हैं, all that. I think eventually it will make sense.
Okay, on that note, I think or quick commerce startups, there's a lot of sort of dumping on them or pushback on them, saying unit economics नहीं work out होते हैं. But I think and they don't have this tier 2, tier 3 coverage right now. But if your GDP grows 3x, right, people have more spending power. People will want that. Like, I think it's already changed the habit for a lot of folks, especially in tier 1s.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine if GDP grows and more people get access to that. Somebody will have to figure out how to make the unit economics work better. Right. I think companies like Milk Basket did that with their, morning delivery model. So there'll be some model that comes out. But I'm a big user as well of that service. Right. Even in the US, right.
Which one do you use? Blinkit, Instamart or Zepto?
No, I use Zepto and Swiggy.
Okay.
Instamart. So Swiggy and Zepto right now. Blinkit, not much. I don't know if they have a large presence in Bangalore, but not so much. But in the US also, there's Instacart and there's DoorDash. I'm a big time user of both of those services, right? So I think that model is here to stay. I don't think that model is going anywhere. I also think, now we're seeing a sudden, decrease in Olas and Ubers, and everybody's saying like that model will not survive. I think that model needs to exist.
Yeah. Or else what will we do?
Exactly. I think that model needs to exist. I don't know in the current form or not, but that model needs to exist. I don't think Tesla full self-driving will take over India. It's difficult. Right? In US that can happen. Tesla's full self-driving taking over the
because
Uber drivers.
The lane and the
right? Like
system.
So that can happen. I don't know in India how that will work. We will see.
Okay, tell me about your journey a bit now. Okay, I want to know, understand, how did you start? एकदम simple language होता है, Plivo क्या करता है?
Sure. अभी आपने बात किया, the quick commerce services or Uber, Ola, or any of these services, right? So when you order something from them, you get a notification that the rider's on the way, or you need to call the driver, for example, talk to them. The number is not. There are multiple use cases.
Yeah.
I'll go through each of these use cases which we use as consumers day to day, right? So when you call a driver, वो जो number होता है, that's not a driver's number.
हाँ, वो company का number होता है.
Yeah, company का नहीं होता. That's numbers powered by us, right? That's called number masking. So I mask your number and I mask the driver's number for two reasons. One is privacy. You don't want your number to show up to the driver, right? And second is I also don't want you to skip me. Like as Uber, I don't want you to skip my software and talk to the driver directly. So दो तीन use cases की वजह से it's called a number masking use case. So companies like Uber, Ola, globally there are multiple other companies. They would use a company like Plivo to power that service. So we provide that number, right? And when you actually make the call, we forward that call and take care of all of that technologically behind the scene.
Nice.
And it's all automated within the app, right? That's one use case. The other use case is an OTP use case. You install one of these messaging apps or any app today. Before 2011 or 2013, 12, 11, whatever, username was the main thing. Now phone number is your identity, right? And because of that, like pretty much everybody wants to verify your number. That's why there's an OTP. So that's our second use case for us. We power OTP globally in 190 countries for all these brands.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't want to name anybody specifically, but for pretty much all these brands globally in US, India, Europe, everywhere, right? So that's the second use case. And third one is notifications or loyalty alerts. So आपको WhatsApp पे या SMS पे, like you've bought something or you left something in the cart, you get reminders. Close the deal, or here is a discount coupon, and so on and so forth. That's the third use case. So we power that entire notification infrastructure for a lot of companies globally. So I've tried to keep it as simple as possible.
No, that's interesting. I didn't know. I thought Ola or Uber or Zomato, all of these companies would have their own system built in-house to mask these numbers.
No, I mean, customers, look, their business is ride sharing or quick commerce or what have you, right? The business is not customer engagement.
Yeah.
So they still have to use third-party platforms or services or softwares that do all of this, like help them get to business faster. And like you said, right, like they are already trying to disrupt such a hard space. So why do things that are not your core, right? So that's usually the thought process. There are some companies that may end up doing it, but a lot of them cannot, because this also requires, remember, you are actually sending an SMS. You're actually making a call.
Yeah.
Actual phone number. This also requires a lot of, working with the carrier, like operators in each country, tying up with them, the regulatory things. If a brand is multi-country, then you have to do in multiple countries. Now, if my business is something else, why do I want to do all this? Right?
Why do you want to get in the hassle of all of this?
Yeah. When Plivo started out, there was no intention to start a company. It started with its open source, like we were an open source project. And for folks who don't understand what's an open source project, think of it like, there are these social networks, or they were called social networks back in the day, called GitHub. Now GitHub is part of Microsoft.
Yeah.
Okay. Where you can host your code, source code. Like people who write code, they can host the source code.
Okay.
And in 2011, there was a social layer to it. Like you could connect with people, follow them, blah, blah. Abhi bhi hai, but it's not used as much. Right. Now it's pure play looked at for tech folks. Right. So this was where people used to hang out back in the day. So Plivo started as an open source project. Uska matlab ye hai ki the code was just a hobby project. I and my co-founder Michael, we put our versions of our own code on GitHub.
Okay.
And we discovered each other from there.
Oh.
Right. So company karne ka to koi plan hi nahi tha. This was in 2011. Right. So it was just like, I was very clear, ye karna hai. I'll keep doing this. Thoda paisa save kar liya tha. Low burn lifestyle. And I said, I will keep doing this till I figure out what I want to do.
Okay.
So that was the whole thought process. And that's how we met. Right. We met on GitHub. I saw his code. He saw my code. I pinged him and said, looks like we're doing something similar. Why don't we do this together? It's anyways open source. Right. So, which means there's no commercial model yet. Saath mein karte hain. So he said, yeah, he was in France. Right. I was in the States then in 2011. And I said, let's start this out and see where this goes. So that's how the whole journey started out.
Nice.
Initial days, yeah.
How big is your startup, by the way? How many people are there?
Today with 300 employees.
So 300 people is also a fairly large organization, right?
I don't think it's very large when I compare it with like other companies, but yeah.
But no, that's what I'm saying is ki when you are a 30 people team or a 50 people team, right? You're so tight knit.
Yeah.
You feel like you're part of something, you're making changes and you're creating an impact.
Yeah.
Right? The moment it goes to 100, 500, 300, whatever, 1,000, 10,000, you automatically start losing the path and you start losing the feeling that you're a part of something. How do you make sure that you continue making that part?
That's a risk I think a lot of companies go through. I constantly think about it every day almost, right? Like, so one of the questions a lot of people I interview for our, employees we want to get on board ask me is, what's the biggest risk you see for Plivo? I think that's the biggest risk, which is as you continue to grow employees, not losing that startup mentality and mindset. It's a culture. Once you lose that, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. So even today, like our number one, I saw, a quote outside. We're not competitor obsessed, we're customer obsessed. Our number one value is customer obsession. I say the same thing internally also. Our number one value is that, right? Our number two value is that ownership mindset. And in ownership mindset, what we say is, or what we look for is, everybody says, we want to hire problem solvers. For us, that's not the benchmark. Problem solvers to har jagah hai. For us, the benchmark is people with this ownership mindset who can also notice a problem and then solve it. वो problem भी खुद find out कर सके कि problem हो रहा है यहाँ पर.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset of people we want to hire. And as long as we can continue to hire those people, वो startup mentality जाएगा नहीं. Because then you have like mini business owners. You can create pods and teams around them. और फिर वो वही culture में operate कर सकता है. So that's something I spend a lot of time thinking about and talking to my teams about.
So it's like build mini teams in large team.
100%. Like that's the only way to solve this. The moment, and Amazon uses two pizza teams, right? The moment you move beyond a certain size, it automatically breaks down. That's the reality of it. 30 भी बोल रहे हो, 30 पे भी breakdown हो जाता है. We've had that breakdown twice when we were 30. Then we went to 15 and then it fixed again and then we scaled. So even at 30 it breaks, right? Like it has to be around that, 10, 12, 15 people.
So उसको क्या हर किसी को अलग-अलग projects दे दो and make them.
I think you need to have enough entrepreneurial people in the company where you can build pods around them. Right? हर को project देने से नहीं होगा. Project देने से नहीं होगा because you need that, that's mini CEO, mini CTO in each of the pods. Right? While their titles may not be that, वो minors, वो ownership mindset बहुत जरूरी है.
Okay, tell me about it's an interesting question. How do you think that AI will disrupt your business? or AI will be used in telecom industry or the industry that you're in?
Yeah, I think AI will disrupt every business.
How will it disrupt? This is one of my favorite questions these days that I'm asking almost everybody. How is AI changing your life, or is going to change your life, or has changed your life in some way? Like, tell me about it.
Yeah, I think it will have significant impact. I feel. I think in general AI, and this is all relevant for us as well, but in general also, I have been thinking about this. In general, I think companies will get much more leaner in terms of personnel. Like what you can do with 300 people today,
Okay.
right? Versus what you can do with 300 people in 2 years with AI is going to be, again, AI is going to be a biggest exponential higher.
Yeah.
Right? So you can actually do 10x more with AI. Right? So whatever, I mean, Mike and I have been chatting about this on can we, 5x our revenue by incrementally just increasing in team size, right? Using AI. So I think is going to happen. Most companies who have overhired will struggle because they will, get disrupted by smaller companies who can use AI and be more efficient. So I think that's one piece that will change the game. I also think, AI will bring in a lot of, especially in there are so many things we don't do in customer engagement, right? So on the positive side, there are, I like to call this the EV moment, like how Tesla came into the cars and the EV industry and sort of disrupted the ICE makers, right? For us, it's the EV moment in AI. So we are also launching a lot of new products. And when we launch those new products, but our philosophy in new products is don't go create the market, right? Because we are not VC funded, or we are, but like we are profitable, we operate like that, right? So we don't want to go create markets. We want to be going into established large markets. And when you do that, how do you then still get market share and grow? The only way to do that is you pick a niche and go deep, right? To differentiate. Otherwise, you'll be a me too, right? So you pick a niche and go deep. And when you do that, how do you find your EV moment? So that's how we think about it, right? So when you have existing markets that have existed for 30, 40 years, we are thinking constantly on how do I find my EV moment where I can not have the baggage of everything that's been done in that industry for 30, 40 years and use AI to disrupt that, right? You'll still have to create, those metaphorically the tires and the steering for a car, like how Tesla did. So we'll have to still build, some basic stuff, but we need to figure out what's our EV moment and disrupt that. So that's, I think, the second thing we think about from an AI perspective. And I think third, I'm not sure how relevant this will be for us, but I feel like it'll change VC funding dramatically. So VCs, a lot of money in the VC industry goes toward late stage companies today, right? Funding large companies and large folks. I think a lot of, so large ticket size investments, if that's the right way to put it, a SoftBank or what have you, right? I think in some B2C areas, you will still need to fund large ticket sizes because it's capital intensive. Okay. But I think a lot of areas, like a lot of VC models will evolve to funding leaner and smaller teams, but a lots of them. So like how Y Combinator does their investment, a lot of VCs will move to that model because they'll realize with a 5 people team, you can do a lot of things from a disruption standpoint. So their capital will start getting allocated in that model.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You think gone are the days where big SoftBank, Tiger Global things were happening?
It may still happen from a B2C where you need like just pure capital to create a market. But I think most other models, most other models like in the States, I think SoftBank also messed up a lot of, just got putting too much money in. Right now, where it's become a sort of a stigma saying if a SoftBank funded, I don't want to come join you or I don't want to touch you. Large chance of blowing up. Right, almost every SoftBank company is blowing up. Because the SoftBank model, you have to understand their model, right? I think the thesis is different. You've raised so much capital. If you don't deploy it, how do you show the ROI? Right, so then your ticket size. So they dramatically inflated the ticket size in the market. SoftBank.
But then if you're an exceptional founder, right, and if you're building an exceptional product or a company, right, or a brand, that gives you so much opportunity to become the world leader, become absolute category leader and destroy it. Like let's say, imagine if Jio was a startup funded by SoftBank, they would have done exceptionally well. Like
there's no data to prove that though. Like if you go back and check most of the SoftBank startups, I think almost all of these startups that have not worked out, right? It's always been...
Wasn't SoftBank, Facebook was backed by SoftBank?
Facebook, I am not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not
who
sure.
backed Facebook?
Facebook was Peter Thiel and
No, the big guys. I think there was SoftBank or something. I don't know.
I am not sure.
I'm just asking. Yeah,
I'm not sure as
well. So let's say there's no SoftBank big company who have done Alibaba, for example.
I mean, but look at, there are some successful ones, but look at the number of ones that have not been successful. Right?
But that's how the VC model works, right? Like you bet on 10 people.
But most times if you look at the data, SoftBank created a market or industry where if a founder needed $100 million, they would come and say, what's your vision? I mean, that's why they call it the vision fund. What's your larger vision? We want to put 500 million. So more than the need when the money comes in, then your business plan has to change. Because then how do you justify that sort of fundraise? So you need to grow faster, then the business plan changes. So you're trying to artificially induce a lot of things which don't need to be done. Right? So
the WeWork story.
Yeah, so that and not a lot of those stories, right? Not just the WeWork story. A lot of those stories have happened. So I think something of that sort has happened in the industry with the SoftBank investment thesis. And I feel like that will change now with AI. With now VC saying, okay, I want to invest capital efficiently, but like lot many more companies. So if you have, let's say my average ticket size was 25-30 million. Now I want to do like 5 million, but in 10 companies or 8 companies. Like that's how they will start thinking with AI.
Interesting take. Let's just see that. I'm excited to see both.
Yeah.
I really am optimistic that one day there'll be some founder who will come with large chunk of capital and absolutely dominate the market in just a decade and like become an absolute leader. Like what Jio did, I wanna see that happening. What Unilever did.
But no startup has done that actually. If you said Facebook. Facebook didn't raise a bunch of like large amount of capital.
They didn't.
That's what I'm saying, right? So I mean, even Google did not raise a large amount of money. So if you look at startups, most successful startups, or almost all of them, the ones that have gone to do well have raised enough capital, not too much capital.
And then they keep raising top up.
Yeah, but that's not round. Like meaningfully not large enough, right? The numbers.
No, they keep topping up after they hit a certain milestone instead of saying like, hey, this is the plan for next 20 years and I want all money today.
Yeah. So I think I'm not sure if a startup operator like Jio would have done that well if they raised so much money. I'm not sure.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm just excited to see something like that happening because that's what happens in conglomerates.
Right.
Conglomerates, they go and decide that, hey, now for next 20 years, we want to own India. Right? That's what they talk about, right? I was listening to this conversation by a P&G guy, A.G. Lafley, I guess. He wrote a book called Playing to Win. And he was talking about it, that P&G Global, US headquarters, they decide that Middle East, India, China, like this is the market, like the Eastern market is growing up. Okay. The biggest pie they're going to get in Philippines and India. That's where their thought was, because China obviously closed borders and stuff like that. No other country was big enough for consumption pattern. And these were moisture countries anyway, where there is more humidity and moisture, more consumption of consumer goods happens, right? Tropical countries. So more consumer goods happen, like the detergent will sell more, the soap will sell more, the hair growth will be more, all of that will happen, right?
Sure.
So I thought, ye do countries, what's our plan? Our plan is in next 25 years, we'll become leaders. So first 16 years, they were just putting money. So P&G decides, first 16 years, I'm not going to make a punt, like I'm not even going to make point of profit, not even 1% of profit. What I want to do 16 years, I want to keep deploying. And I want to enter, like everything I launch is going to be number one in the country. So I go and be like, hey, the country has, let's say Surf Excel as the leader. Let me go blow up capital and make Tide as the leader, right?
Sure.
There's no product differentiation.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing, right? Then they're like, okay, I want to own the shaving market. Jo bhi local players hai hatao. I want to enter with Gillette and own the market.
Right.
So that's what they do. That's what Unilever does. That what Reckitt Benckiser did, right? The Reckitt came up with Harpic. And there's like, for next 20 years, we'll build a category and keep pumping the money.
Yeah.
So that's what large conglomerates have always been doing. I'm waiting for a startup to do this because they come up with large pool of capital and they have a 20-year, 30-year vision to own a country and become number one. Own a country is a wrong sentence to say. Let's say to get a significant pie in a country and become like a market leader.
Sure. No, this is where I'm saying I don't think it's easy for a startup to do this because the VC model doesn't work like that. Right, a VC model, like they need to return capital
in 4 years, in 5 years.
5 is too aggressive, but let's say 10 years, right? 2 funds, 2 times of like
2 cycles, yeah.
2 cycles of the fund, right? Like so 8 to 10 years, they have to return money. They cannot think 20-year plans, right? So that's the challenge there, which is why I said I think the companies that become independent out of VC model will be able to sort of create their brand and vision, right? So that dependency has to go out from the VC model, right? Like, but conglomerates can do that because they are thinking long term.
Okay. Tell me, now that we're talking about it, I have a last question for you. Tell me, what do you think Indian startups are doing wrong that is affecting them to not achieve the kind of profitability? Because there is consumption going in the country. There is money getting pumped in the country. There are all the right talent. So there's talent, there's capital, there's demand going on. Why are we not able to achieve the profit, or why are we not able to live up on the promises that the world sees as for us, the promises that we see for ourselves?
I don't think startups are doing much wrong. Like, I think it's just a cycle, like I said earlier, right? Like, generally startup economies go through with these cycles. We're in that early phase of the cycle where the startup economy is just getting created, right? And if you see like and you can go back 20 years to the US markets and you'll see similar trends. Most of the companies today in the India space are B2C. There are very few B2B companies. And whatever B2B companies exist, in India, incorporated in India or with an office in India, they're serving outside. India consumption also for software or B2B stuff is minimal. Okay. So I think it's the first cycle of how I put it. I think the next phase is going to be some players from the first cycle come through. There's going to be more investment in B2C, which I think will require VC funding. There's no running away from that because you will have to create that market over time. I think when the GDP grows and the economy grows, a lot of people who are not accessible to the startup community will be available now, like that skewed component of people. So out of 140 billion in terms of accessible numbers, people talk about like numbers being super small, right? Like 10 crores or whatever is what is accessible today is what they say. So right. So if that number has to increase, right? And then only then you can even think about like profitable CACs and your LTV going up and all of that, right? Today, I think what is happening is to acquire that customer, there is so much money being thrown in, but then you're not able to reap the rewards over time in the B2C market, right? When the economy changes, per capita changes, all of that mindset will change. You said, something about earlier you to think if I want to pay $15-20 extra for a Zepto order, right? And now today you don't care. You want it there. I think that habit has to change in the larger scale of things, right? So I think that one will change. That's B2C. I have a very strong opinion on B2B, and I've seen this happening in the US. Is B2B, I think India, I personally feel will go through two phases. There was this US-Israel model first, where, startup model where US is your HQ, Israel is your R&D center. We, like with Plivo, we are in the model of US-India model, right? Where US is our HQ and India is our R&D. I think the first phase of B2B companies will be that. There will be a lot more B2B companies that will come in with this model, US-India model, because US is the largest B2B sort of market, if you will, right? From like where you can sell to today. Europe, I think, is the second, but US is the largest market. India market doesn't exist today. So I think there'll be a uptick on that market right now in terms of how companies will scale. And I think there'll be a second phase that will come in for B2B, where local consumption of B2B will increase. Because today, I think it's that build versus buy mentality. It's all about like खुद ही कर लेंगे.
Exactly.
Right? खुद ही कर लेंगे या मेरे को software की value नहीं है. I want it at cheap cost. So I think that will also change at that over mentality. Time. Yeah, over time. So वो B2B में second phase आएगा, जहाँ पर that will change. And then when there's local consumption happening in B2B is where the real B2B change will happen. I feel. So that's a long journey. I think it will take time. I don't think there is any shortcuts. We have just picked our business model and markets to be such where we don't have to sort of be, in this other space or race, and we are, serving.
You don't have competitors? Like, how many people are there?
Yeah, there's a lot of competitors. Like, we're not the market leader. We have a lot of competitors, and our largest competitor is in the US. We have competitors in India also. In fact, when we started this out, right, the thought process was India में बेचना ही नहीं बेचना, and we said 2011 I'm talking about. We said India नहीं focus करेंगे अभी, सिर्फ US पे करेंगे, and we picked the market and focused on that market. India हमने focus ही नहीं किया.
What's the revenue split between India and US?
India is like, I would say, minuscule. US markets are almost 60% revenue. Right? India is minuscule. We have a local entity in India. We've gotten the regulations and regulatory approvals and all that. So we will now start focusing on India.
Because next 5 years.
Next 5-7 years, we're big on India as well, right? India is going to be a very large ecosystem for all of our stuff. And we are launching more solutions. So when that comes in, that'll, I think, create more excitement and
interesting.
Yeah, and revenue from there.
Perfect. Pleasure talking to you, man. Like, it was amazing. Thanks for giving us about the way you hire, the exponential things that you told about, then giving us some sense on how India, China, Indonesia, Brazil, America works. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for watching this episode till the end. It really means a lot that you take out your time and watch this episode till the end. So I'd ask you to please comment and let us know how can we improve and how can we bring better guests. If there's a question that you want me to ask to the guest, please write it down in the comments and let us know what exact question I can help you with. And before you leave, don't forget to share it with at least one person whose life will change after a conversation, because one conversation can give so many ideas. And even if you use one idea and implement it, you can change your life, your family's life, and achieve the Indian dream that we all want to achieve. Thank you so much. Until the next episode, keep figuring out.